Look at the guys over there that have that UAV.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Now today I want to talk about class setups, primarily Warzone class setups. And of course we know that there's only 10 slots to use, and a lot of you guys own the full game, so you guys won't be using all 10 slots just for Warzone. But for this video, I'm focusing mostly on the guys that only have Warzone. But if you guys did like any part of this video or learned something new, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that bell notification for more videos. Other than that, let's get into the video. Now we're gonna start off with the 5 ghost classes that I use. This is normally when we grab our second loadout after we grab overkill in our first loadout. But of course it's by your team's discretion. Now to start off, my first ghost class is my Growl. My second is my MP5. Now my third is my M4, but this is more of a rushing M4. The fourth I have an M13, and last but not least I have the HDR. Now for my overkill classes, I have an M4 and an MP5. Second, I have a long range Growl that's different from the first because I throw on a sight on it that I normally don't because I love the iron sights. And of course for my secondary I'm using the MP5. Now for my third overkill class, I'm using the Growl with iron sights and the MP7, just in case I want to switch it up and just go full on rushing. For the fourth class, I have a Growl with iron sights and an MP5, with the only difference is that it doesn't have the VLK scope. Now last but not least, I have my Growl and my HDR sniper. Now let's break into these classes. To start off, we have the Growl, by far the most overpowered AR in the game as of right now. And I want to start off with the muzzle. So I run the monolithic suppressor, and personally I have the biggest pet peeve when one of my teammates doesn't use it because it removes the whole element of surprise. Now moving to the barrel, I run the Tempest 26.4 inch Archangel barrel. I just love the iron sights it gives with it. Now for underbarrel, I run the Commando foregrip. I've seen people use the Merc foregrip before, but personally I just prefer it over the Merc foregrip. For ammunition, we're running the 60 round mags. Honestly, you can't tell the difference between the 50 and 60. Now for my perk, I use fully loaded. Personally, I love this perk. It just allows me to come back into the game and not worry about if I need bullets or not, especially when you get back from Gulag. So I highly recommend this attachment if you're able to replace it for an attachment. Now moving on to my secondary, I run a knife. I can't stress how much fun I have with the knife and how many times it saved my butt because it just makes you so mobile. It's so easy to get out of gunfights. Now let's move on to perks. So for my first perk in my ghost classes, I use EOD just because everybody already has their first loadout by the time you grab your second. So it's just better to be safe than sorry. Now moving on to the second perk, we have Ghost. Of course we know what that is. It gets you off of the radar. For my third perk, I use Amped. I can't stress how helpful this has been to me, especially when you run out of ammo and you have no time to reload. Moving on to lethals, we're using the one and only C4. We all know that this is the most overpowered lethal in the game of Warzone. So if you don't have EOD, you are screwed. Now moving on to tacticals, I use the stun grenades. I used to use the heartbeat sensor, but it just didn't make sense to have 4 teammates that were using heartbeat sensors at the same time. So I thought, why not try out the stuns, and it's been helping out amazingly. Now moving on to the second ghost class setup, we have the MP5, and for the barrel I'm running the subsonic integral suppressor just because it has so much perks over the monolithic integral suppressor. I mean, if you just look at the perks on the subsonic integral suppressor, it's just hands down the best. Now for underbarrel, I use the Merc foregrip. I used to use the Commando foregrip, but it just makes sense to use the Merc foregrip for that increased hipfire accuracy. Now for ammunition, we're using the 45 round mags. You could use the 30, but honestly in Warzone, bullets are everything, so I just run the 45 round mags. Now for rear grip, I'm using the iconic stippled grip tape. And honestly, I don't know why this stock is equipped right now. Normally I run a perk, most of the time sleight of hand, just for those good close engagements. so you don't have to worry about reloading super slow. Now of course, secondary, I have my knife, perks 1, 2, and 3, all the same, lethal C4, and of course the tactical stun grenade. Now moving into my third ghost class setup, I have the M4, and this is more of a rushing M4 just because I throw this no stock on it. Normally I wouldn't even put a stock on it, but since it's a rushing class, the no stock gives it that movement speed and the aim down sight speed. And on this M4 we are using a laser, the tac laser, just because there's so much benefits, and the only thing is that enemies can see your laser, and that's only when you aim down sight. And now for the barrel, we're using the stock M16 Grenadier barrel. I was using the Corvus for a while, but I'm still testing to see which I like better. But I will let you guys know when I do come to a conclusion on that. And no shocker here on the muzzle, we do have the monolithic suppressor. And for ammo, we do have the 60 round mags because it doesn't really differ too much, just like the Grau on the 50 or 60. But like I said before, everything else in the class is the exact same. Now moving on to the next class, we have an M13, and of course, again, no surprise, monolithic suppressor on the muzzle. And for the barrel, we do have the Tempest Marksman, just to give it that increased range. The underbarrel, I am using the Commando foregrip. Ammunition, we're using the 60 round mags again, not too much difference. And of course, my perk, I use fully loaded. It's nice because this gun in the Grau doesn't really need too many attachments to actually help the gun because it's such a good gun overall. Of course, we're moving past the perks and equipment. Onto the last ghost class setup, we have the HDR, by far my favorite sniper in Warzone. I do like the AX50 in multiplayer just for quick scoping, but I don't recommend it in Warzone just because of the bullet drop. Now for me, I'm an aesthetics kind of guy, so personally I don't mind compromising things like the optic. Normally I run the variable zoom, but I just love the look of the grassy knoll, so I just keep it off. But that's all personal preference. But for me, it didn't take too long to get used to it, so now I can hit any shot that I need. Need it be closer or those long range shots. And now on to the breakdown of the class. Of course, for the muzzle, we do have the suppressor that is monolithic. Not much to be said there. Now moving on to the barrel, we are running the 26.9 inch HDR Pro. I do highly recommend you don't use one of these bull barrels just because it eliminates the chance of you using the monolithic suppressor because it locks the whole muzzle attachment category. For stock, we are using the F-Tac Stalker Scout just because it's the only beneficial one out of all the different stocks. Now for my perk, I am using FMJ. Sometimes I do use fully loaded, and I have been tangoing with the presence of mind just because my friend said that the time it takes to hold your breath is ridiculously long with this perk. And if you do want to use the variable zoom, you can always take off this attachment. It's not required. It's just personal preference. Now moving on to the ammo, we are running the 7 round mags. You can use the 9, it's just like the M13 or the Grau. You can't tell the difference between the two. Now let's move on to the secondary because it is a little different in this class. We are running the Renettis, but you can use any other secondary. I just find it easier to have a pistol at least instead of a knife and a sniper. It just doesn't really make sense unless that's your type of thing. For the muzzle, we do have the monolithic suppressor. The barrel, we're using what makes the Renettis, the Mark III burst mod. For the trigger action, I'm using the lightweight trigger. People do use the match grade trigger, but personally I just like the feeling of the lightweight trigger. But it's all personal preference. For ammunition, we're using the 27 round mags just because in Warzone, ammo is everything. And for the rear grip, we're using the XRK Pro Grip just because it's done so well with the variant, the Guard 1 variant, that I really haven't just taken it off. Of course, with the perks the same, lethal and tacticals all the same. Now moving into the overkill classes, we're starting off with the M4. Now this is more of a less rushing M4 just because you can see that there's no stock. But other than that, into the muzzle, we do have the suppressor that's monolithic. For the barrel, the stock M16 Grenadier. For the laser, we are using the tac laser. For rear grip, we're using still the iconic stippled grip tape, and for the underbarrel, we're using the Commando foregrip. Now of course for the secondary, we're using the MP5, not much to say there, and all of the attachments are actually the same from the Ghost setup. Now moving into perks, we do see a little change in the first and second, so for cold-blooded, I do recommend it when you grab that first loadout, just because it's so easy to find thermal snipers and thermal weapons on the ground or in crates, so it's good to have that cold-blooded so they can't see you as easily. And you might be thinking, well, why do I need all these same classes? There's so many of the same gun, and I'm gonna tell you why. Just imagine that you grab your first loadout. Okay, you have your Grau and your sniper, and you and your team keep getting into close engagements where you don't need a sniper at all. You've never gotten in range for a sniper shot, unless you do like quick scoping. But other than that, on your next loadout, you can always grab whatever specific weapon that you want, and you can just swap out and you'll have Ghost. So say I wanted a more rushing class, I grab the MP5 and I just swap it out with the sniper. And of course with the Grau, I swap out the knife when I grab that Ghost MP5 class setup. Now this Grau gets a little weird. I kind of built this to be long range, and I didn't personally think of this. I've seen YouTubers and streamers use it, so I thought why not, and it's absolutely amazing. But other than that, every other attachment is exactly the same. The only thing I really replaced was the fully loaded perk. But other than that, it's more of just how I feel like playing that day. Now for the secondary, we're using the same MP5, and we'll kind of speed through the little process here just because everything else is the same, just like normal. Now for the next overkill class, this is more of just pure rushing because I do have the MP7. The Grau is the exact same Iron Sights Grau in the Ghost class. But on the MP7, of course we're running the monolithic suppressor on the muzzle. And for the barrel, we're using the FSS Recon. Now this MP7 might look a little different just because it's the Bunker 11 Easter egg variant of the MP7, which honestly I absolutely love. And I would highly recommend doing it, but the only problem is you're gonna find a lot of campers on top of the bunker. Now for the underbarrel, we're using the Commando foregrip, and ammunition we're using the 60 round mags, and of course on the rear grip we're using that Stippy Grippy. With all these attachments, it just turns into a powerhouse for rushing. But other than that, everything else in the class is exactly the same. Moving on to the second to the last class, we do have the same exact Grau and the exact same MP5 that we use. And last but not least, we have the same Grau and the exact same HDR sniper, just paired together. But please feel free to mix and match on your own discretion. This is all up to you. It's honestly just trying to help you become a better player. And this is the closing of our video, so I hope you did enjoy the top 10 Warzone class setups. And if you guys did like the video, please let me know by dropping a like on it, hit that subscribe button, and hit that bell notification just so you know when new videos go live. And I do stream on Twitch, so I'll leave the link in the description. If you guys just want to chat or come check it out, I do stream Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday at 6 PM Pacific time. I hope to see you guys there. But until next time, I'll see you guys in the game. Be ready for more content, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.